Hey, welcome back to the Man-Ology Project podcast, where I'm your host. And on today, I got as a co-host with me today, a friend of mine, Terrance Wilson, the author, speaker, businessman, father, husband. He does it all. But he's joining me today. We got a great topic on today to talk about. But before we even get in, I want to talk about this is season 3 for me with the podcast. This is going to be a great year. This year, we're centering around mental health and wellness this year. And so we got a lot of great things that are coming up. Me and Terrance, we've partnered up on some things. Won't talk about them right now, but we got some things that are coming out later on this year. And so just can't wait for you guys to witness what we're doing here. But just know that this whole season is going to be based around mental health and wellness for men. And so on today, just to kick it off for our first episode of season 3, we're going to be talking about the healing the inner child to succeed in the work and family life. I guess over the last couple of months or so, I've been talking to guys, and it's been troubling because most guys are struggling with the work-life balance. And so I thought it would be great for it to be able to dive into a topic. Terrance is going to help me dive into this. He's one of the men that are amongst the working and the family life. And so we're going to hear some of his experience and share some of his thoughts around it. But we just want to talk about this topic and then and see what you guys think about it. And if you have any comments, you can put all those comments in the comment section below, and we can definitely have, some dialogue about it. So Terrance, work-life balance, struggle,
Yes,
fatherless,
sir.
the balance. I guess that question is that does fatherlessness strike a core, or does it have the ability to um, hinder us in being able to be productive when it comes to work-life balance? Um, you wrote a book about fatherlessness, so let's get your take on that. So, does the silence influence of fatherlessness, does that actually have a full impact on men being able to balance that work and life?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, it does because when you look at when you look at the family, right? God established the family as the foundation of society,
Hmm.
and your upbringing, uh, whether it was right, wrong, or whatever, it influences who you are as an individual. And so there's several things that are missing when a father is not in the life of his child, or if a father is there but he's not operating the way that he should be operating as a father. He's either present but absent, or he's present but abusive. And so there are situations where the father can be in the home and still cause issues in the life of the child. And so, one of the things that we need to understand is that when a child is properly loved, that proper love establishes a strong foundation. The Bible talks about one house being built on a strong foundation and one house being built on sand.
Yeah.
Well, when you have a strong foundation in your life, then you're able to weather different storms. But when you have a weak foundation in your life, you're not able to do that. And so one of the things that we see a lot of times with men is, especially when they want to walk off the job, I don't have to take this, I don't have to deal with this.
Right.
Um, it's because they don't really have they haven't had that interaction with that father or that authority figure where they had a balance between being corrected and loved at the same time. And so when things just kind of come across as criticism, 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 and they don't understand that balance, then it's easy for them to kind of walk away from the job. Or you have the opposite effect of that, where you have somebody that's longing for a father figure and,
Yeah.
and is looking at their boss as this father figure, and this boss looking at you like, dude, I just want you to do your work. like
Right.
you too needy for me,
You're
man.
right. You're
Like
too clingy.
you're clingy, man. It's like, what's going, like, listen, dude, I look, just chill out, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, you don't get that you don't get what you're looking for. You have this unrealistic expectation that you're placing on them, and that can cause friction between you and that particular individual. Um, and so there's so many different ways in which not having a father in your life actually influences you on the job. Um, and then another way that it can happen is you can have somebody that is, you know, they're so upset that their father wasn't there, and they want, you know, their whole mission in life is to prove that I'm going to be somebody without you, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And then, you know, they start working, and they got all these goals and ambitions, and they work so hard and get to the point where, yeah, you've become somebody, but at what cost?
Yeah. That's
Like
the key right
where,
there.
yeah, where have you been for your family,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you may not be you may not be absent from the home, but you can still be absent from their lives. And so
Yeah.
we need to understand the balance, because whatever we do, the end product is supposed to be for our family. You know, and I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things that I had to learn, that, you know, I work, but I'm doing this for my family, and so I need to be present in their lives.
Yeah. I think you made it a lot of good points on there too. Is that, I mean, the first thing is when you have that father, and this, I mean, both of us experience, fatherlessness in the homes. And so now that we're both fathers, so I'm really, when I'm speaking from being a father, and it's like just watching the interaction that I'm able to give to my son and to my daughter, and then I'm watching my son make some great decision. His decision making is a lot sharper, um, because he has me to be able to help balance that out, right? It's like,
Right,
uh, my thing with him has always been, "Hey, you got the right to make the decision. Okay, don't think that I have to make a decision for you. You have
right,
100% right to make a decision." And the decision is not the problem, right? Is that whether it goes right or wrong is where the problem becomes an issue, because if it goes right, then you get to have all the kudos. If it gets wrong, then you have to have somebody you can go lean on or help with some solution findings, right? And so I told him,
right,
I was like, that's the strength of a man in decision making, is not that you can't make a decision or that you actually need me to make a decision. Is this, hey, you can make the decision. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Hey, but if it
right,
doesn't and you find yourself in a jam where it's like, hey, I really thought that I nailed this. And so now I need to really run this through a filter, and that's what your dad will be for you.
right,
And if you have that all the time while you're growing up, which the way that I'm watching him, um, he's 20 now, and I'm like, man, he's been making some really sound decisions lately. And, I mean, majority of his teenage years, man, he's made some good decisions, but I do know that 90% of them, though, if they did go left, he was coming back to me to say, "Hey, Dad, how can I do better? What should I've done here? What can I do?"
right.
Right. And so those solutions, I think, is something that's well needed in this generation. I was talking to two gentlemen at the gym just this morning about mental health, and I asked. It was funny because they were complaining about their jobs, and so I'm kind of like eavesdropping, and so eventually I just couldn't take no more. I just walked over to him. I was like, "Hey, man, what if I told you guys I had an opportunity that you guys can actually come sit down and then sharpen your skills around that work life balance, right?" They both kind of looked at me like, "Okay, tell me more about this," and just kind of let them know that, listen, as men, it's not about whining and complaining, right? But it is about finding out solutions. And in those solutions, sometimes it's going to take maybe a buddy, someone well, I won't say a buddy, but someone who you can trust with
Right,
the information that you're giving them, which is one of the reasons why when you don't have a father in your life, that it's hard for you to trust other people, because you have not really grown up with giving someone some information to hold on to, that that you can actually trust, that they're not going to go tell
Yeah.
everybody in the world about your information. So that fatherless piece, it seemed like, you if you hear a lot of
Yeah.
guys talk about their success without a father, it will give you the illusion as if, oh, a dad doesn't really make or break you needing to be there to be successful. But I beg to differ, because you said an important part, which is sometimes we go from the validation part of it. I mean, we go from the part where it's like, man, I need my father to, I need to be validated by someone,
Yeah.
whether it's at home or is at work or is your peers. Normally, when they're younger, it's normally your peers. We as men, normally we look for validation, and we're going to get into that, things that we purchase. And, I got a big house. And so our buddies can validate how great we're doing successfully. But that main one that you said was that overworking, which is really detrimental, because that brings on anxiety, depression, high blood pressure, blood clots. I mean, I can go through a
Right.
whole list of things that come with you with a man who thinks that overworking is the best remedy to, the validation of whether you had a father in your life. Like you said, it's like, hey, my dad wasn't here, forget him. I'm gonna show him. I'm gonna show everybody. And that mentality is not, it's not healthy either. And so what we're trying to do now is that we need to find what's the balance between working hard, because I think we have to work hard. And I'm gonna let you speak to that, like working hard to provide for our families. But then how much of that then do we have to say, okay, I've worked hard enough. Now I got to do some family stuff. So what is that
Yeah.
balance you look at? How do you put the balance there? And then I'm gonna tell you how I look at the balance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely one of the things that I try and do every year is I try and do like a major vacation with the family every year. Like we go somewhere and we just, hey, we're going. We look forward to it. We talk about it. Like we already got it planned this year.
Yeah.
Where are we going? Already got the plane tickets. Like is happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but the other thing is just making sure that like I'm there for the games, I'm there for the recitals, I'm there for the things that are important to them, right?
Yeah.
And not just things that are important to me. So the vacation is important to me, right? And one
Yeah.
of the reasons why I try and do a vacation every year is because that's one of the things that I saw my mom do.
Yeah.
My mom would make sure that we at least went on one good vacation every year, and she wanted us to do that because um, her mentality was that when we go on vacations, we make memories, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so when we go on different vacations and we come back and we talk about it, and Dennis will bring up, remember when we went to such and such, and Naomi will talk about, remember when we went to such and such, and we did, ABC 1, 2, 3, and so for me, it's important that my children and my family have memories of me and memories of us having fun together.
Yeah.
And so, but I also want them to have memories of me being at the game, memories of me being at the recitals, memories of
Yeah.
me being at the school programs and, different speeches that they had to do, in school and stuff like that. Being at the basketball games, cheering them on, being at the practices. Like, as a child, one of the things that I struggled with was I struggled with the fact that all of my major accomplishments nobody saw. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
my obviously my dad wasn't there, so he didn't see. My mom was working 2 or 3 jobs, and I can't fault her because she was doing her best to put food on our table, clothes on our back, and a roof over our head. But still, for the most part, she was working, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so, I would be the star of the basketball game, but nobody saw, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have been the one that, I scored the soccer goal that won the game, nobody saw, right? And
Yeah.
so, I can go down the list of things that still are etched in the back of my mind,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um, that, I want to make sure that my family uh, doesn't have those same type experiences where, daddy was in the home, but daddy wasn't there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, it's very, very important that that I do my best to make time for my family. And there are times that I am busy, and my wife was just talking to me over the weekend. She's like, "You sure you ain't too busy?" I'm like, "Nope." But she probably knows better than me, because I
Right.
like I wanna I it's the drive in me to want to make an impact, right? And
Yeah.
so, but I want to make sure that I make time for my family, because I want them to know that daddy loves you, that hubby loves you, and that you are important to me. And
Yeah.
when you make one of the ways that people know that they are important to you is when you make time for them.
Yep. When you show
You
up.
know,
Yep. I agree.
when you show up,
Yep.
people say this all the time. If it's important to you, you'll make time for it, right?
Yep. That's
So
really the key.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
So why I want so I guess right here, so like part of what we're discussion is so why do so many men bury themselves in work to avoid confrontation or confronting emotional wounds, right? It's just like just pile it on, like you said with the boss. It's like, hey man, everybody's leaving to go home. It's like, no, I'm gonna put in another hour or so, boss. I'm gonna go
yeah,
ahead and knock this project out and stuff. And really just trying to use it as more of a coping mechanism, because I know we normally talk about drugs and alcoholism and sex and all that stuff as a coping mechanism. But to be honest though, when you hear guys, with the 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 hour weeks, it's like, man, I got up at 3 a.m. to work on A, B, and C. Make sure that it's not a coping mechanism to something that's really
yeah,
deeper, right? Which is normally just trying to prove something. Like I think for men, we get lost when we don't have a father. We get stuck in the proof. How do I prove something? So when I look at, when I hear guys who are just working a whole bunch, it's like, man, are you working because you're working, or are you working because you're trying to prove something to somebody? I mean, it could be to yourself, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But to me, it just looks like you're avoiding something by using work as a mechanism to cope with the fact of whatever has been absent to your life. Like I look at um, Mayweather. I remember seeing an interview with him, and he's got all this money. He's always got money everywhere. He's got now one of the greatest boxers of all time. So you
yeah,
have to
yeah,
give him that. But when he just talks about the people that's around him, like he was like, man, I got all these people around me, but yet I still feel lonely, right? That's a weird thing to say when you've accomplished everything that any boxer could ever accomplish two times over. So the success is there. Um, he's still overcompensating and working even today,
yeah,
right? But then when he had that
yeah,
one interview and I heard him say that, I was like, wow, that's pretty deep, man, to have. He's got entourage around him all day. It's like
yeah,
there's people around you every day, all day, man. You got money.
yeah,
And the dude said, yeah, he said, but yet I still feel like I'm all by myself. And when I
yeah,
looked at that and then I looked at our topic for the day, I was like, wow, that's one of those. I'm gonna bury myself in work because I'm actually feeling extremely lonely, and almost absent from everybody else. It's almost like, man, if I just disappear, people probably wouldn't even know I'm here and there, right?
yeah.
And so that is something that I think is kind of a hard thing to see. So what would you say when you look at that, like just having that avoidance of confrontation or confronting some type of emotional wound?
Yeah, so one of the things that we as men struggle with is we struggle with expressing ourselves emotionally.
Yeah.
Um, and so what we end up doing is when conflict arises, we kind of uh, we kind of avoid it. We don't want to deal with it. I ain't got time for this right now, and so we do things so that we don't have to avoid it. what happens is it builds and builds and builds and builds, and then one day it explodes, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to learn how to deal with those emotions as opposed to suppressing it. And
Yeah.
for whatever reason, as men, like that's what society has taught us. I was doing some study and was looking at the life of Job and looking at the fact that he had some friends that came over and they were helping him to mourn, right? So the Bible says to rejoice with those that rejoice, to weep with those that weep. Um, and I was just doing some studies on professional mourners, and one of the things that I found was that in ancient times they had professional mourners, but they were not men because it was unacceptable for a man to cry in public.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, how that has been kind of passed down from one generation to the next generation for thousands and thousands of years, that men don't cry in public, what we've been taught to do is mask our emotions. And so the way we mask our emotions is by ignoring it and by not even addressing the problems. And so you know what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can put a few extra hours in at work, you know,
Yeah. Yep.
um, and because we're not emotional people, and women are in terms of sharing their emotions. We go home to our wives and it's like, girl, you too emotional, I ain't got time for this, I'm gonna
Right.
stay at work a little bit longer, right?
Right. Right.
Because I ain't trying
Right.
to go home and deal with that, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we do use it as an avoidance method,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
And even
then
like you
when we
said, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. But when we do that, we find ourselves by ourselves
Yep.
because now I haven't been able to share who I am. I haven't been able to share my struggles with anybody. And the way we connect with people is through building each other up and through holding each other up and through sharing with each other. But if we're just holding everything in, then yeah, we're gonna feel lonely.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, there is that um once it starts to build up and it's like, man, I don't want to go home to all of that, picking and probing from my wife. So I'm gonna work some more hours. So that very same coping mechanism now starts to affect and put some separation between you and your family because
Yep.
you don't want to deal with it because your wife loves you, so she can see and she knows, our wives know our background, they know our history. And
Yeah.
so sometimes, like you said, your wife looking at us like, are you sure you're not too busy, or you are? Because they can kind of see, like, and even you said it is, she probably knows better than me, right? Because I'm just
Yeah.
rolling, right? And as men, that's what we do. We'll just keep rolling. The two gentlemen that I was talking to earlier at the gym, I just told him, I said, the funny thing about balance with work and life is the you get married, I said, and because they were just talking about their balance, family work life was just off. They're like, it's way off, bro. And so I was
Yeah.
like, yes, because the thing is this is if, and I told him, I said, if your wife is angry, spitfire, just always got stuff to say, it's just and it irks you. I was like, I said, 9 times out of 10, man, you probably lied to her along the way
Yeah.
because that's the only thing that will actually spark up some type of anger in someone is when they feel disappointed about something or an expectation was not met. Right now,
Right.
there's a way
Right.
that some people have expectations that were never, you never told the person about those expectations. So I'm not speaking to that because that's way off the other end, the other end of the scope. But I'm talking about a nice, healthy relationship where the husband and wife did create expectations in these processes on how they were going to build their life.
Right.
And I just told him, I was like, as a man, you're this woman comes into your life. She lays down 90% of what her dreams were in her life to come under you. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that you don't go back to it or whatever the case may be, but that initial step is I'm going to go and follow this man, and wherever he leads me, that's where we're going to go. right? That's her
Right.
initial thought. I'm not saying it goes smooth all the time, but I think that this how smooth it goes is based around the information that you provide on where you're going. So God's word tells you
Right.
that we should always have a vision, like and men without them, they perish. Like if you don't have that, you
Yeah.
just won't be able to you can't move in the right way. So I told the guys, I was like, 9 times out of 10, you probably told your wife, hey, I'm gonna go and build this business.
Yeah.
It's gonna take me 5 years. I'm gonna need 5 years to build what I have to build. I said, well, in 5 years, man, she's giving you 1,000%.
Yeah.
The way God's word set up is that she was built, the woman was created for you. So that's you're successful, man, because hey, she took care of everything at home. She did all the stuff that you needed to give the free time so that you can build, this life for everybody.
Yeah.
Now, the kicker is that once you're done building it, now you got to let that greed not settle in because once you make a certain amount of money, then it's like, well, man, I'm looking over the horizon and I can see I can make another 100,000 and then
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
100,000. But you made this promise to this woman that, hey, I'm gonna build this business and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna let you go to school. I'm gonna let you figure out some stuff as you want to do. I don't care if you want to bake cookies for the neighborhood, but you owe her that time to come back to her and say, okay, babe, now the business is moving and shaking. Let's sit down and put together a plan for your life so that we can get you, back. The kids are getting older. So ladies might want to get back out into the work field. They might want to
Yeah.
start a foundation or whatever it is. But are we in a position in our own lives where we're content enough to be able to go back and say, hey, it's your turn to go and do A, B, and C, and I'm going to settle down. I'm not saying I'm not going to grow my business, but I'm going to do it in the smaller increments than I would if I just had the full throttle of your, permission base, if you want to say, to
Yeah.
go out and do this. And so the guys just started laughing. They're just like, well, that makes sense, man. I said, yeah, because she's going to be upset because it's like, yo, you told me that you were going to start it. It started. Then you told me that you were going to grow it and you grew it. Okay, we're living comfortable. Like I got a friend of mine, man.
Yeah.
He's like, yo, we got boats, we got, $500,000 house, we got, he just was naming all his material things that he had. He's like, so I don't understand why she's angry. And I was like, well, it's kind of obvious to me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've been married 27 years. I think he had only been married like 15 years or something like that. Um, he was a younger guy, probably I'm 50, I'll be 50. He's probably about 15, 16, 17 years younger than me. So he's doing well for himself to be a young guy.
Yeah.
But his
Yeah.
thing was that, man, I don't understand why is she always so angry and stuff. I was like, well, what do you do? Like,
Yeah.
well, I'm in sales. I'm like, okay, so how often are you on the road? This dude said, man, I fly out. I'm out of town about 230 days a year.
Wow. Yeah.
I said, out of 365 days?
Wow. Yeah.
He was like, yeah, but I made sure everybody got this. They got boats, they got vacations. I was like, yeah, you're replacing you with items. I was like,
Yeah.
and that only lasts the first year, really. After the
Yeah.
first year, they're accepting the gifts, but that's not what they want. They don't want gifts, man.
Yeah.
They want you to be there. And then when he finally had to be there because of COVID hit, and then he had to go home. He didn't even know what to do. He couldn't even insert himself back into their life because they had been on autopilot without him for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when you look at that piece and it's like, okay, so I'm overcompensating for work. The wife is getting on me for working too much. So I don't want to hear her noise. So I'm gonna go work more.
Yeah.
She's still talking smack. So now instead of me going home to talk to her, I'm gonna actually just go buy her a new car. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like this, that coping mechanism also starts to get very dangerous. And then you wonder why people could be married 30 years, the kids leave the house and then they get divorced.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. One of the things that happens with people a lot of times is they make relationships very transactional,
Oh,
right?
yes, you are right.
You
They
know,
do.
hey, listen, I'm gonna be out of town, but when I come back, like I'm gonna take you out, right? Or I'm gonna buy you a boat, or I'm gonna
Yeah.
buy you a car. I'm gonna buy, and my love for you is based on what I do for you. And for women, um, they are very connectional, right?
Yeah.
So they want to make sure that, hey, am I connecting with you, right? But I can't connect with you if you're not here. I
Right.
can't connect with you if we're not talking. I can't connect with you, if you're on the road, or if you're, traveling 220 or 230 days a year, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so what happens is, when you're not connected with that person, and you guys aren't doing life together, over the years, you're changing as an individual because you're having certain life experiences. They're changing as an individual and they're having certain life experiences. The next thing you know, after 10 years, like, you're still married, but you don't know this person that you're married to because
Yeah.
you haven't spent enough time with them to understand, right? And so the Bible
Yeah.
says, hey, husbands, dwell with your wives according to knowledge,
Accordingly.
right?
Yep. According to
You
knowledge.
have
Yep.
to you have to know her, right?
Right.
Which,
But what you say, but
when you're in the home, that's a struggle in and of itself. But when you're not there, that
yeah.
is
Now, but
way
this is the
harder.
thing. That's the thing, though. So, and I like you brought that scripture, right? So, your husbands deal with your wife according to the knowledge, right? So that's a good one. So now, I mean, we're talking about fatherlessness. Like, how great is that impact if you never watch your dad exhibit that in the home, right? So
Yeah,
you never watched anyone actually create balance. You never watched anyone monitorize the time they're going to spend away from the home versus what they're going to spend in the home, how much they're going to spend with each individual child. I'm very intentional on spending quality time with my son by himself, my daughter by herself, my wife by herself, and then collectively. I'm doing a lot of dating. I'm dating everybody in the house. My wife said, "You're the only one that get to have fun all the time." I was like, "It seems like it is,
yeah,
uh, but I have to be able to show my son this because I didn't see it, right? I didn't watch my dad balance a family. I actually saw him say, I don't I'm not particularly fond of what's going on." And not with words, but with the actions, right? I mean, I know people would say, "I didn't set out to get divorced." Well, your actions did, right?
right,
Like,
right,
there's certain actions that you have to take to not be divorced, and you didn't choose any of them.
right.
And there's so you just saying that you didn't set out to do something doesn't mean it doesn't really equate to anything because at the end of the day, God gave us free will. So we have a choice to make the right decision. So when I look at all these pieces, I'm like, all this stuff sounds great, but if you don't have a father in the house to actually, we're talking to men and we're trying to help them out, but really at the end of the day, they didn't have anybody to show them.
Yeah,
So they're
yeah,
struggling in these areas that you would think that you should know it, but you don't know it because no one modeled it in front of you. So when I
yeah,
look at that, and this kind of goes right into our third question here, which is having that fear of failing as a father. Um, I think that plays a heavy part on the childhood that we were brought up in. And I think on here we got the subconscious fear of repeating a cycle from childhood, right? I think
yeah,
that is like the craziest thing because I know for me that was like my biggest thing is that there's no way that I'm going to repeat what my dad did um, into my family,
yeah,
and I had to seek out a way how not to. And remember when we were all talking in my basement, it was like, how did you do that? Well, it was my grandfather who basically educated me on how to not repeat those
right,
cycles. But
right,
now in the position that we're in, now we have to go and try to let guys know that, hey, it's okay to realize that things went weird in your life back in your past.
right.
And you're gonna have to address them, right? Which
Yeah,
is why we don't like to go to therapists. Don't take me to no psychologists. Don't take me to no mentors, I think Pastor Jamie always talk about that. Everybody wants a mentor until I start mentoring. It's like once I start mentoring, it's like, well, I don't want you trying to tell me what to do, or I don't want you picking and probing into my childhood. So when you look at that, and I know that you wrote the book on searching for your father, and um, but how does that impact even you? Like just having that
Yeah,
fear of failing as a father.
yeah, yeah. Well, for me, I mean, obviously, the reason why I wrote the book was because I broke down, um, because of that fear. You know, was from South Carolina, moved up here, didn't know anybody, and the thing about not having a father is that, when you call your mom, right? Your mom is a nurturer. Your mom is looking to alleviate the problem. Sometimes, and I used to always call my grandma and talk to my grandma about different things. My grandma was like, "So baby, when you moving back home, you too far away from me, right?
You say, just come
And
on back.
just come on back, right?" And the thing about being a man is that you want to, there is that part of us, that wants to prove that I can do it, to
Yeah.
prove that I can win. And
Yep.
so, there is that challenge that we all face, and we all want to step up to that challenge. What ends up happening, and what ended up happening with me, was I found myself totally on my own, um, having to pay all the bills, having to make sure, like, if something was done, it was on me. I didn't have a roommate.
Yeah.
Like mom was, in South Carolina. So when I came home, okay, all right, I gotta cook, I gotta do the dishes, I gotta, make sure that everything's, in order. Everything falls on me, and I also want to build myself up for the future. So hey, there's some things that I want to get done,
Yeah.
and I step out and I start doing things, and things aren't happening the way that I want them to happen. I do the
Yeah.
right thing. I set up a budget, and I'm like, okay, that I didn't hit that budget this month. Like,
Right.
all right, let's try this again, right? And
Right.
so you
Right.
go through all of these scenarios, and you find yourself struggling because the goals that I set, I'm not hitting. I'm seeing myself as a failure.
Yeah.
And just being able to pick up the phone and call someone and be able to say, "Hey, listen, um, I'm struggling with this."
Yep.
And you made mention of this earlier. Just finding somebody in your life that, is not going to expose you. It's not going to
Yeah.
put all your business out there, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And just being able to get on the phone and call somebody and say, "Hey, listen, this is what I'm dealing with. I don't know what to do," right? And
Yep.
have that person say, "Okay, have you done this? Have you tried this? Okay, let's look at, okay, you got a budget. Okay, then let's look at your spending habits. Let's understand, are you overspending in certain areas, or do you
Right.
need to look at certain things and say, hey, you know what? You don't need that subscription. Get rid of it, right? You got to
Yep.
make hard choices." Somebody who can talk with you and give you sound advice, um, because they love you, you know.
Right.
And sometimes you run into people, especially it may be somebody who you look up to as a mentor, and they're mentoring you, but it comes at a price, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And it's like, if you can't pay the price, then you come to me, right?
Right.
And so just having somebody solid in your life who you can go to, and you ain't got to do anything on the backside. They got your back.
Yeah.
That's what we need, because as men, when we step out in public, we want to have that face that, hey, yeah, I got it all together, right? and we
Unfortunately, we
struggle.
do.
Yeah, and we struggle because there are times where um, we wonder if people can look at us in the face and tell, dude, you a phony, you know, and
Yes.
as long as I got somebody that I can pick up and I can call, and they can give me the right advice, and I can bam, 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 take care of it. Oh, that worked out. Then when I
Yeah.
step out, I don't have that issue of saying, hey, I feel like I'm faking it because, yeah, I got these clothes on, I got these Jordans on, but, budget ain't making it every month, right?
Right,
And
right.
so it's a struggle because as we step out into life, we still need that foundation. And
We,
if that father
yeah,
is there, that father is there to help steady us so that we can succeed.
yeah. And I like that too, is that when we're trying to step out, and you don't have that, and it just made me laugh because I'm just going back when I first got married, it was like instead of like going away to college or trade school or something, I'm out here just making money and trying to help my mom, the whole single mother syndrome of a son, right? I gotta help my mom. I
Right,
gotta help my mom. I gotta help my mom. And it's like, but once I got married, it was like, I just remember like the first year, I just thought, wow, like you really did stuff backwards. Like this, like the responsibilities on this side of marriage is so
right,
intense that there's a proper way that your life have to be designed and to go. And I'm not saying that you can't, that people try to challenge, A, B, and C made it this and this and this. I was like, yeah, but just because someone made it out doesn't make it the right process to get out, right? That's like in
right.
our community, it's always, oh, they should be able to do it because John was able to get out of, the hood and under the gutter and he became a professional A, B, and C. And it's like, well, just because he did and he went through all of that doesn't make it the right way to go through life. And I think in our community, that's how we deal with life. Like you will find a father who's well to do, he's got things he's done better for his life. He's done way better than a father that he never met. But yet when he's raising his son, he's still trying to raise his son as if they have absolutely nothing. Like they're just in the gutter. And it's like, yeah, he got to earn it. He got to do this and he's got to do that. I was like, well, just because you had to go through it and it made you a
Right.
better person doesn't mean that it's still the right process to go through
Yeah.
to become a
Yeah.
better person.
Yeah.
Having no father and being a great father, I don't wish that on my son, right? I'm a not I'm I mean, I consider myself, pushing every day to be the best I can as a dad.
Yeah.
Um per my son, I am a great dad. But when people meet me, they go, yeah, man, but look, what your past childhood and all those experiences, what who made you today. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not gonna look at my son and go, well, let me leave your mother so that way you can live the same way I did, so that you can grow up to be a great man.
Yeah.
But yet that's our mentality in our community is if the boys don't struggle and have hard life and pull the car by a chain and change a tire with their bare hands. Like they just can't become real men. And I beg to differ. It's
Right.
because what we fail to realize in our life is that we all had absent fathers, whether they lived in the house or out of the house, and they never put any quality time in to build you into anything.
Yeah.
So the only thing that they knew was, slavery time, which is, hey, get out here and work hard and then figure out life. And to me, I didn't do that with my son. Like I didn't throw my son out there and just be like, yo, get it. Now, was I tough on him? Yeah, but I wasn't tough where it was like, go change this tire with your bare hands and figure it out type of tough. It was mentally tough. Like
Yeah.
I was more concerned with his mental state because of what I went through. Like I could
Yeah.
tell you that I became this guy because of all the stuff I went through, but no one ever sits down and say, well, man, Quentin, how is your mental state
Right.
when you went through this whole thing? Like I remember my mom saying when I was younger, all this crazy stuff is going on, but I used to twirl my hair and pull it out. So I
Wow.
would twirl my hair and pull it out, twirl it because there was so much chaotic stuff going on in the house. So for me to
Yes.
cope, my mom said I would twirl my finger in my hair and then pull the hair out. I don't know if that's why I'm bald today, but 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 when I hear that, it's like disturbing because it was like, man, I mean, I turned out to be a pretty good guy, but there is a space in there that but mentally, because no one checks in on you mentally when you're going in that lifestyle. Like kids who are struggling with their parents not being in their life or whatever the case may be, no one checks in on their mental state. I
Yeah.
mean, you know that because you do prison ministry. I learned that when I got on the foster team, and really started working with foster kids. I was like, these kids don't need you to rescue them. They're not looking for no savior. You know what they want? They want someone who just sit there and be genuinely kind to them. Like they really want somebody who can be genuinely have a
Yeah.
genuine heart to sit down and have a conversation with them. And I just started learning, like, oh, so they don't need you coming in. Oh, what, you hungry? You need some shoes. They like, dude, that stuff is fading. It fades out, bro. But can I have your number and I can call you when I'm crying? Because that's
Right.
right. Because what those kids are looking for, they're looking for a father figure. They're looking for a mother figure. That's what's been if they had a mom that was on drugs and had no dad, they're looking for a figure to fill this void that they have in their life. And I think that
Yeah.
sometimes in our childhood, when you go back there, those past wounds, man, they'll mess you up. And um even with just having self-doubt as a parent, as a whole, parenting is
Yeah.
way to me parenting is way tougher than being married, because
Yeah.
my wife came to me already together. She already came with a
Yeah.
personality. She already came with her charisma. She already came with
Right.
whatever she came with, good or bad. She came to me like that. These kids are the kids we have, dude. We're responsible for that character. We're responsible for the charisma. We're responsible for self-esteem. Like, we're responsible. So your daughter, her self-esteem comes from her father.
Yeah.
Girls who have low self-esteem, fathers, I know, hey, you feel like you're doing the best job. Your daughter has low self-esteem. Behavioral science says that self-esteem comes from their fathers, which means that we have to be present.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
self-doubt kicks in as a parent because nobody showed you how to be present for your daughter or your son, right? So no one
Yeah.
was present for me, so I don't know how to be present for somebody else.
Yeah. 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 No. It's very interesting that a lot of times people. One of the things that God dealt with me about, um, he basically told me, he said, there are things that you have learned that you need to unlearn and then relearn the
Right,
right way.
right, right, right.
you know and there are things that I do, and I look at it, and God's like, okay, all right, what you're doing, you need to unlearn, right?
Right.
And it's a struggle
Right.
because in my mind, having grown up like that, it's now become a stronghold. It's become the way that I think. I was taught to think that way based upon me, growing up in a certain environment, based upon me having a survival mentality, and,
Yes.
and so because of that, I have this certain mentality, and it's hard to break. And
It's
that's
very
one of the things
hard.
that God is like, hey, listen, you have to unlearn that, and then you have to relearn it the right way. Um,
Yeah,
and when a father is in the life of their child, it allows them to learn things in a balanced way,
I
and it
agree.
allows them to be full, right? In Proverbs 27, it says that um, the full person only desires honeycomb, but to the empty soul, every bitter thing tastes sweet.
Yeah.
And so when you've been when you've had a life of balance, when you've had a life of love, when that daughter understands that daddy loves me, when that daughter understands that every night I get a hug from dad, I get a kiss on the forehead, that he tells me that I'm loved, there's there's only so much that she's gonna put up with when she gets into a relationship with another man.
Yeah.
Like, this is foreign to me. The way you speaking to me, the way you, this is foreign to me, right?
Right.
But if she hasn't had that, then she gets into that relationship, and when it seems as if he's going to leave, she gets clingy and she gets to the point where she'll accept anything, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so that's where it says, the to the empty soul every bitter thing tastes sweet.
Yep.
And so things that you would normally say, that's not right. Like, who would
Yep.
want to put up with that? Like, why are you still in that relationship?
Right.
Well, there's a void there,
Yeah.
and we all have that void, in some way, shape, or form. When our father's not in our lives, whether it's being clingy to someone who we want to mentor us, or whether it's being rebellious because, hey, I don't need a father, and we don't really acknowledge authority figures. There's so many different aspects of how it
Right.
affects our lives, but it's there because we have that void. And as a father, it's my responsibility to make sure that that void is not in the lives of my family.
Yeah. Yeah. This is going to probably be an ongoing topic of discussion because
Yeah.
really, um, oh, and we'll probably have to come back and even dive into some more because we still have more. We still got more points in here to talk about, but because it's just very important. I think that most guys don't understand that you're gonna have to, at some point in your life, you're gonna have to sit down and realize that you got to get this healing from those inner wounds that took place, man. I know that I had to do it. I had to sit down and really, really pray and ask God to take that stuff out before I even got married. Like I did that before I got married because I knew there was no way that mentally that I would be able to go through a healing process and be a great husband at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's really because I got married young, and women have an emotional component to them that sometimes presses on you, and
Yeah.
it takes maturity to be able to weather that and to make that emotion that seems so out of bounds or crazy, to bring some soundness to it, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
not speaking, whether it's giving her a hug, whether it's, something that's on the more mature side, which is I don't have to always, just because your wife says something in an emotional state, doesn't mean that you have to go out here and defend and protect yourself from her, right? Uh, then you learn about grace. That's why I said this topic about what we have to do as men is
Yeah.
very important, and I wanted to really take this year to really dial all the way back down to the foundation. And I like how you said the foundation for us to be the best that we can be as husbands, fathers, businessmen, leaders, as saints of God. Like it really comes from what was laid from the beginning, and that normally normalized by the balance of a mother and a father.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but more, but that balance is still more on the way that the father sets the atmosphere on which how the home is going to be operating.
Yeah.
And I think we'll talk more about like what I mean on that on another episode, because that is something I think that also helps with breaking those generational type of um wounds and inner things that have hurt us and
Yeah.
damaged us, or these little triggers that come up and up to creep kind of creep in on us sometimes. So but listen, I'm gonna have you come back on, man. We're gonna keep on talking
Yeah.
through this mental health and wellness. um, I like that we both experienced, fatherlessness. So, fellas, we're not talking from you know, do do this, do what we say and not what we do. We're actually
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
do what we say because we did it, and it worked. Okay. Yeah, some we both got many years of marriage between the two of us. We got sons that are in college doing well. We have daughters that are coming up, beautiful little ladies. And so we do have a little bit of information to share with you guys, but we definitely want everyone to really look at themselves as men
Yeah.
because we want to be stronger this year moving forward. So just our call to action is in our today's discussion, if it resonated with you, just take a few steps towards healing. Seek
Yeah.
support to talk to a mentor or journal about your own experiences. Like, I think that's very important is that we actually talk to a mentor and then we start to journal our experience. And then do me one good favor, do me and T a good favor. Share this episode with as many men as you can, because we're trying to build a team of warriors here that can get out here, man, and make things happen and make change in our communities as well as our families. So this is the end of the show for the day, guys, but we got plenty more to go. And like I said, this is our third season. Mental health and wellness is what we're focusing on this year. And this is me and T, and we're out.
Peace.
Peace out.